Okay, so I am down doing my hopefully nightly walk now since it's nice out. And I got a question from, I assume, a new, if not subscriber, a new viewer. And I just want to take the opportunity to address this thought that is so prevalent about randomness with regard to the timing of the resurrection/rapture of the church. Now, understanding that the church isn't Israel and that the timing of the 70th week does not specifically pertain to the church because we won't be here, it absolutely does have bearing on the rapture of the church, because the purpose of the rapture is to remove us from a time period we were promised to be spared from. So obviously, I don't mean that sarcastically, but there has to be a link. Logically, there would be a link. It's not an arbitrary event. It's not a random event. It is a purposeful event, and the purpose of it is to remove us from a period of time that we are exempt from. So even though the church and Israel are not the same, the timing of the rapture is absolutely related to the timing of the 70th week. The 70th week is a fixed, appointed time that begins on Nisan 10 as weeks of years do per Leviticus 25, and Daniel, who tells you he's using Leviticus 25's weeks of years. The starting point of which is when ye shall come into the land, then the land shall declare a Sabbath unto the Lord, a Sabbath of weeks of years, not weeks of days. Nisan 10 of, say, 1406 BC, which is Joshua 4:19. They came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and camped in Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. 4 days later, they celebrated the Passover. The next day, the manna ceased from heaven while they were in the promised land. 7-year conquest for the land of Canaan, and then the land rested from war, and there was a parceling of the lots to the 12 tribes. 11 tribes, because Levi doesn't get a parcel. This is all within the book of Joshua. So Nisan 10 is a fixed target that, relates to Israel. But because the rapture is absolutely interrelated to that, again, we go back to what is the purpose, then that is when our time frame for that would be as well. Now, the randomness aspect that people kind of draw from comes from, and I've heard this from multiple people, and that is that Paul used language that make people think that he was including himself among the group that would be living at the time of that event, thereby thinking that could have happened at any time and that he was under some misconception that it was going to happen during his life. Okay, well, looking at the historical context of that, Paul was a legal and prophetic scholar, in so much that God purposed him to teach from the sealed book of Daniel to the disbelieving Jews on his missionary journey through the book of Acts, where he always, without exception, taught in Jewish synagogues. Paul is under no misconception. We look at this from a logical perspective. Paul was under no misconception that the 70th week was going to happen in his lifetime. He was preaching from the sealed book of Daniel to a people who are blinded because blindness has been cast over Israel. And it talks about how in the end times that they will run to and fro trying to read it. Isaiah 29 talks about that. They'll deliver it to the sealed book to one who has learned, saying, read this, I cannot understand. And they'll be like, I don't understand it. But this is all linked. And in the end times, the knowledge will be increased. And then Israel will understand and believe, and Jesus will come back and save them and all that. But the blindness persists, which is why, again, we go back to purposefulness of Paul's teaching was to teach from a sealed book to a people who are appointed to blindness, because otherwise they had no shot whatsoever. We know that he taught from the sealed book of Daniel because that is a reference that's made in 2 Thessalonians 2 to the two events that Daniel prophesies must happen before the second coming of Christ, both involving the temple. At that point in time, a temple still stood, so it was an easy reference point for him to give to people who thought the second coming was nigh upon them and be like, nope, the two things that Daniel says have to happen before that point haven't happened, verifiably haven't, so you're good. Don't worry about it. You've been lied to. We go back to 1 Thessalonians 4, where he's using language that puts himself among a group of living. Why does he do that? Because he is living at the time where he's writing the epistle. He's talking about an event that will include living people and dead people in the future, but he uses present tense language. He says, I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep. Are, present tense. That ye sorrow not, even as others which have, present tense, no hope. For if we believe, present tense, that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Jesus will, future tense, God bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive, present tense, will not prevent them or precede them, present tense, which are, present tense, asleep. For the Lord himself will, future tense, descend from heaven with a shout, the voice of the archangel, the trump of God, and we who are alive, present tense, shall be in the future caught up. Doesn't mean they'll be alive in the future. It just means that they are among a group of people who will participate in the event, and at the present time he is writing to them, they are alive. Words are important. It's not random. Don't be confused.